That's taken a long time.
Nerds and geeks back at it again. It is the legendary Nerd-O-Roundtable. Yours truly, King Nerdificent Twala Sharp in the building, joined by Dr. Liz.
Hey,
from the
everyone.
freeway. Gia, Mo Kelly.
The Devil Wears Prada 2. I got a lot to say, and hopefully Tom will help me out.
And Thomas Talking Cunningham.
Absolutely.
Before we get to this magnificent review of the Devil Wears Prada, and hopefully those of you who follow both Tom is Talking Cunningham and Mo Kelly have seen some of their thoughts. And I really want to hear your review, Mo, especially how you connected it to a time within the music industry when you and I were dealing with, you know, higher ups who would routinely call us out our name, routinely disrespect us to the highest point of disrespect. I'm talking like you must want to go outside type disrespect. And so I absolutely want to hear this review, because there was one dude who I worked with who literally for the first at least month and a half, 2 months that he worked there, called me motherfucker every day. Never called me by my name. It was just, hey, motherfucker, where's this playlist at? Hey, motherfucker, what?
You're not exaggerating.
No, I'm not exaggerating at all. I had to be talked down off the lid several times, like, this is the game, T. And I'm like, it's not the game where I'm from. That shit.
And they tell you, either there are 100 people lining up who would want your job.
Yeah, they're
just like the movie.
They used to just straight up. They used to be like, "Do you know how many people want to be sitting in the seats you're in right now, hoping they could get called motherfucker?" I'm like, bruh. But before we get to that, oh my God, The Boys. You know, a lot of times, you know, people watch The Boys and they say, "Man, I can't believe they went there." But damn it, this last episode, and this I believe is second to last. This is the penultimate episode. This is
I think there's more.
No, there's two more.
Okay. So it's just Daredevil that just has one more. Daredevil and Maul, I think they have one more. But look,
this is
this last episode of The Boys. It was so disturbing for so many reasons. It was, I mean, like some of the stuff, it wasn't shocking like, oh, it was shocking like, oh my God, I gotta look away. Some of the things that happened were so horrific, from butchers, dogs, nonstop fantasizing about fucking Homelander, to the murderous murder that happened at the Hollywood Hills celebrity home.
The cameos.
The cameos were stellar and
incredible.
Gory, and oh my God, the most gruesome ever. There were a couple of, believe it or not, even a heartfelt moment with Butcher, and I just still, man, the episode, it weighed on me. I walked away and kind of just leaned back in my chair and just said, well, that happened. Jeez Louise.
See, y'all not making me eager to get back into The Boys after I left season 1, episode 3.
No, Liz, look, I feel you, because look, everyone who's ever watched us knows I was not into The Boys like that. And then Gen V, which F the creators of Gen V, and really the creators of The Boys, for shitting on us with canceling Gen V and not giving us a third season, and really thus far not giving us any inclusion of a series that should have been like shown throughout this recent series of The Boys, because we're like, that's what the last season of Gen V was leading to. It was leading to a massive team up of the Gen V kids appearing in The Boys. That's where it was going. We've only heard mention of names. That's about it.
A Godolphin past
of Godolphin as a past reference of Marie, and that's about it. To not show them in this, but to also tell us as fans that F you, you're not getting another season. Why did we get the show in the first place then? What was the point of introducing Gen V if you were not going to go further into that? And I know, maybe within the realm of the world of comic books, there wasn't those spin-offs and things like that really would have led to something like that. But for the majority of the world, no one read the damn comic book. All right. Everyone knows the series on Prime. And if you're going to introduce a spinoff series with Gen V, that really and truly, I believe if you look at the trajectory of the fandom and the watching of The Boys did pick up. It wasn't just me. There was an increase in viewership after Gen V hit, because Gen V touched on an entirely different audience, which brought people into the world of The Boys. And so to then give us that and do away with it, that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit.
It was geared to a much younger audience because they're high school age, and I say air quotes, the characters were high school age. We got to see more of the Boys universe. You got to see more of the Vought Corporation, how it had its tentacles in various and sundry things. But we were always told that these characters would have a role literally to play in the Boys universe. They even had the Homelander, sorry, spoiler, the Homelander cameo in the season finale of season 1. So you had every reason to believe that they were building up these characters to come into the main universe. Now we know that this is coming to the end of not one, but 2 TV shows. We have 2 episodes remaining and absolutely no crossover. So it seems at this point, Gen V was a show leading to nowhere, and it has absolutely no impact on anything.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the key differences that I think made it maybe more approachable for audiences is that this was a universe where all of the characters weren't despicable.
Yeah.
You had young people with powers who weren't horrible. You had some horrible young people with powers. The mind control guy was absolutely horrible. There were some other horrible people. And with the exception of Translucent Son, who jumped from Gen V into The Boys, that's really been the only carryover. And we discussed in the chat, I think there's
the Hound. The dude who could sniff folks out.
The dog dude. He ended up jumping over. But I think one of the issues is that we're being led to a path that the Soups virus is gonna be the reckoning. And if the Soups virus is the reckoning and all Soups die, then it's kind of pointless to kind of posit that you're going to create a season 3 of Gen V, because most, if not all, of the Soups are going to be dead. And without the tension of a Homelander driving the action, why does Gen V matter? They basically said Marie Moreau might be able to even kill Homelander, which is a reasonable thing to posit since she killed Godolphin. And Godolphin was a first-generation V user, so he should have, which is why he was able to sustain all of his injuries. He never healed, but he didn't die. And he still had full use of his powers because he was puppeting the guy that we thought was the big bad of season 2 of Gen V, who actually wasn't the big bad at all. He was just being puppeted and then controlling people through his control. So I think that probably has something to do with it. I think also the Marie Moreau / Stigmata, she's always going to be Stigmata to me. She is a credible threat to Homelander. And so even if Homelander's vanity would not make her a focus, the audience would have an expectation that she should be a part of Butcher's plan because she is that powerful. And the other part of it is that there's a possibility that her powers, which have been demonstrated to be able to heal Soups, that she might be able to resist the virus.
Yeah.
And if she
Yeah.
can resist the virus, then, you know, it puts a whole different spin on things. And so it feels to me, I appreciate that Gen V probably expanded the audience of The Boys, but obviously it did not work out from a fiscal standpoint, because if it was minting money, then Bezos, or minting subscriptions, or the streams were that high, then Bezos would never have canceled it. So, you know, our feelings aside, it is apparent that it is not true. And maybe it's because the polarity, the son died at the end of season 1, and you know, it just kind of threw things off. Glee didn't last much longer after one of its key players unalived himself. So, you know, there are any number of things which could be happening. It's obviously a more expensive show just because of effects. And so it may be that the economics didn't work out. I'm not happy, but the breakneck pace at which The Boys has been proceeding, that boy with Marathon Man, it was just like episode 1 times 7.
Yeah,
and you think they wouldn't be able to shock us at this point, but they do. I mean, visually shock us, storyline twists, shocks, and you don't know. And to your point, Tom, stigmata may have a role to play, because we don't know what the effects of this virus is going to be. They still have to deal with the idea of Soldier Boy, who theoretically is immortal. So that's there are a lot of entry points for Marie to come in and do some damage. But that's just us speculated. They haven't given us any real indication that they plan to do that.
And not for nothing, Stormfront was also one of those first gen V people.
Yeah.
And so, and she got killed, and was killed by, wasn't it Homelander's son?
Yeah.
Yes.
Killed her?
Yeah.
And by the way, we haven't seen the resurrected Homelander's son back yet. So it seems like there's a couple of things coming to a head. And of course, in the last 2 episodes, but especially in this last episode, the psychopathy of Homelander and this God complex thing is really creepy.
Very creepy.
The way that episode ends with that resolution after everything he put Firecracker through. Baby. That was rough.
That left me like, because
I thought she was safe. I thought her character was safe.
I thought he was gonna, like, you know, pat her on the head or something and walk out.
Yeah, I thought she might have ended up on her knees, but I thought she was gonna be okay.
I literally thought that they were just gonna, I thought he was finally gonna have sex. I thought that was gonna be what it was, and then that would have been weird and freaky enough to go after your dad. That would have been really bad. But I still thought that's what I thought, like, oh wow, like he's gonna try to, I don't know, like, you know, find himself and get past his fascination with breast milk. Sorry, Liz. But I thought that he was going to hit it. I thought that was going to be what it was. And he was going to be like, I'm a man now. Or
well, at least one more time before he did that. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Something. Yeah. Something.
Yeah.
She went out.
He didn't hit it. He just quit it.
Yeah. She went out. He left her literally hanging by the head. Ugh. God, that was horrible.
You got me hanging by my head now.
Another show where the most recent episode was all types of shock and awe, and actually heartbreaking in some ways, was Daredevil Born Again.
Yep.
Oh man, this last episode, oh my heart. I mean, and it was one of those things that, because I did not know where it was going to go, and I was really, really tense. I did not know what was going to happen to BB. And yo, man, when he went out, he went out. And it was one of those, when he said, when what's my man's name? It's not Jimmy. But the fucking guy, fat guy, when Gandolfini's son, when he let BB go and said, make it count for something, all of a sudden my heart sunk, because I was like, oh man, he knows it's a wrap. And when you know it's a wrap and you still walk in there like that, I'm like, hey man, look, man, hold your head up high, man. Hold your head up high, you know. And he literally stared death in the eye And in the end, I thought there was going to be some level of sympathy. But when that shot rang out, fuck.
Hey, that was
First of
another
all,
show. I thought that character was safe, and
Yeah.
until he wasn't.
Yeah.
well, and let me just say, BB, you trash for that.
That's BB. You should have said,
Because
come with me.
the thing that put that bullet in that boy's face was you saying that she was in the leak about
Yeah.
the wife.
Mhm.
You ain't have to say that. It was a fight room full of people that saw that woman had that glass shard shanked in her face.
Yeah.
Plenty of people. So everybody knew she was sick. Everybody knew she was injured. That was not enough of a scoop. You knew what you were doing. That didn't have nothing to do with your uncle or anything else. You were just being petty.
Hey, can I ask a question? He never hit it, did he?
No, he didn't hit
He
it.
never did?
See, that's the
No.
thing.
He never hit it. No.
No, and I think that she led him on quite
No,
a
no, she
bit.
definitely did.
Yeah. Oh, no,
She
no.
also
She
felt-
definitely let him on.
But there was a real moment where she felt sympathy for him when she
It was
was
you think it was a
around the
sympathy
house.
kiss?
Well, I'm saying
It was
when
a sympathy
she was
kiss,
snooping
yeah.
around the house and she found whatever it was that she found that said, you know what, I can't do this to him.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
he's a
True.
good guy. She may have been they were using each other, whatever. I kind of thought that on one of those drunken nights that they were hanging out that maybe something had happened, but I guess I could be
No.
misremembering.
But I
No,
think that it could. I think he could have
Daniel.
wore her
That's the
down
name, Daniel.
a little bit.
He could
longer.
have. He could have after lunch with his mom. He was
Yeah.
getting closer. He was getting close. He could have gotten himself a quote unquote pity fuck. He could have. He could have. I'm just saying. You're not saying he could
Not
have.
anymore.
No,
Well,
but
no.
the thing is, now that's important because I didn't understand his motivation to risk so much for her when he had an inkling along the way that she was the leak. He didn't
Right.
He couldn't prove it, but part of the reason why he didn't follow up on that was because he was thinking with the wrong head.
He was now see, but Mo, that's
He's
it.
desperate.
That's it.
Yeah.
Desperate.
Oh no, he definitely
Desperate.
wanted her.
Yeah.
There's no question that he wanted her.
Yeah.
And maybe he thought that in that last moment where she actually showed him a bit of genuineness, that he decided he at least wanted her to live.
Yeah, but I mean, and look, Daniel, you can tell from his life and from what we saw in his room that and I think that was very important, the things that she saw on his wall, and the things that were important to him culturally. You saw his love of superheroes, you saw his love of just hip hop, of culture and all that he was deeper than who this guy is that we thought was just out there trying to win and curry the favor of the kingpin. That was, you saw in those flashes in his room, you saw that was him trying to live up and be the man of the house, him trying to surpass his father, just the images that you see of his hardworking father on the wall, and the reverence that you saw in the child looking at his father in those photos, things like that. I said to myself, wow, like, okay, so this is actually a deeper dude. And just that tour of his room made me think differently about him as a person. I thought he was just a shallow suck up, but you see he's a hardworking, when you meet his mom, he's a hardworking blue collar guy that really was trying to take advantage of the position that he was in, and had that New York mentality of like, yo, like, I'm gonna make it anyway by hook or crook. I'm a hustler. I'm gonna make it.
But that's why it was so surprising and striking to me how it ended, because they were giving us more about him. We were learning more. We were allowed to be more invested in him as a character, as opposed to just someone who had political ambition and was willing to turn a blind eye to everything. Then you start showing us more, and all of a sudden, one straight to the face.
Hey, look, you know what? With the death of Vanessa, which I honestly didn't think was going to happen,
Right.
Anyone can get it right now. They're in an anyone can get it kind of phase in this storytelling. And again, I said in our group chat, Daredevil has literally said, all right, MCU, fuck it, jump on my back, I'll carry you, because this show is giving us some of the best moments in Marvel Cinematic history, both television and film. Recency bias aside, this show is absolutely flawlessly phenomenal, even in comparison to its Netflix run, where even in all 3 seasons of its Netflix run, there were at least 1 or 2 episodes each season that you were like, could have done without that. Didn't need a whole episode of Matt sitting in his room drinking or whining or crying, whatever, where there were throwaway episodes. That's always the complaint of the Netflix universe. And even in season 1, when it came to Disney, it was like, okay, it laid all of our fears to rest. It was like, no, we're doing Daredevil. This season right here, the pace in which it's moving and all the drops it's giving us, this is stellar. This is stellar Marvel television. And this cinematic quality, the things that they're giving us, this is
But there's one other thing. It's cinematic quality and it's cinematic relevant. When we know that what is happening in the TV show is going to matter on some level, in some way, in the cinematic universe, where what's happening right now in New York is going to play out somehow in Spider-Man. We know, because New York is just a central location, and you know, it was already significant when you have the drops of Luke Cage and the appearance of Jessica Jones. In other words, I'm saying it is actually going somewhere. It's not just giving us something, but they're telling you that this is coming in the future as well.
Yeah.
And in a way that the current cinematic universe did not do in phase, whatever the last phase was. So, you know, it is, can you imagine if Feige had committed to figuring out a way for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to really exist in concert? And maybe it would mean that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't on every season. I know that might be tough to negotiate with the actors, but none of those actors, not even Coulter, none of those actors were so busy that you couldn't have said, okay, look, this is what we're going to do. We've got this season, which is the aftermath of New York. And then we got to go on hiatus. But 2 years from now, we're going to bring y'all back to do this.
Yeah.
And then, because the last 2 seasons basically were in the future, because they couldn't do anything.
They were time traveling. They went to the past,
which was
to the
crazy,
future,
and they were living in a simulation for a season. So it's like, if they had just played their cards right and done it more like Netflix, where Netflix was dancing in between the movies, but then you just left them alone, and then you could bring them back. And it's like what they're doing with Daredevil. They haven't stopped producing Daredevil. They're already shooting season 3. And so it's like, you know, that's what it could have been. It could have been, instead of you trying to do 23 episodes a season, or 18 episodes, or, you know, the front 13 or whatever, if you had just said, let's do some summer replacements, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be one of our summer replacement shows, and it's going to fill a finite period of time between these 2 movies. It doesn't have to exist in the same time. This season takes place after Thor 2, but before Avengers Ultron, or whatever.
Or you could have tied it to the aftermath of Avengers films. And the marquee films.
I agree with all of you. And I have a question, and I know that I'm actually bringing back something that you all have mentioned, and I was on the other side of the fence. But the more that I'm getting the more that I'm talking to people who are fans of the Marvel movies, but they haven't seen a lot of the TV stuff or the Disney Plus stuff, is what I'm saying. And it's now become, it used to be not that much that you haven't seen, but now that it's become quite a bit. And I'm curious on if Disney's almost playing too much into the niche of the fan who will watch everything, versus the movies are not standalone anymore.
I want to challenge that. Because we have friends who will say, "Hey, what do I need to see before watching X
Mhm.
and Y movie?" And there are levels to this, as they say. Yeah, you can enjoy Captain Marvel per se, and not have to know about the fuller MCU and the timeline and leading up to why Captain Marvel is relevant. You can look at that as a standalone piece. And a lot of the movies in Phase 5, Tom, that basically sucked or weren't very good, they were standalone pieces to their detriment, I think, because it didn't have any continuity. It didn't. It wasn't woven into the larger tapestry of the stories that they had been telling up until that point. So, if anything, you could watch Daredevil on TV and know that it's not going to have any overlap when it was on Netflix, and not have any overlap with what you were seeing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so people could still see the movies. Even Avengers Doomsday, you go back and watch maybe Infinity War and Endgame, and you're pretty much up to date.
And with the
Right.
re-release of Endgame, that's pretty much what they're saying. They're pretty much saying, like, you can literally skip everything else, just watch Endgame, because Endgame is going to literally pass the baton to Doomsday. It's not going to pass the baton to anything else. It's just directly connecting. And then I recall when Kevin Feige was asked why there was such disparate connection between this most recent spat of films. His response was that we are releasing these films kind of how you release comic books, how sometimes you have comic books that may be interconnected, sometimes you have comic books that do stand alone. He said, but trust the process. You will see how all these things do connect. Unfortunately, for comic book collectors, we can get books every week. Now there may be some books that come out once a month, but at least there's something that comes out weekly that can connect and keep you into a certain space. If you're getting Avengers, they may drop Avengers, the first of the month, and the next week you're getting Iron Man, then you may get Captain America, and then you may get something else that ties back, but everything will go to the Avengers, and it will all spill off into a big crossover event, which brings you into all other kind of books. Same with any X book or any street level vigilante book. That's kind of how comics go. Unfortunately, with the film going audience, who you need to appease, you need to make sure that the film goers are in. Because if you're just relying on nerds and comic book collectors, your theaters are going to be empty. You're not going to get, you have to rely on people who don't care about the damn comic books at all, because, comic book fans, we may hate it, but you got to make films for film goers. All right. You're not making films for comic book buyers, which, as it is right now, it's a dying breed. So when you think about that theory and all these films that have come out, all you've done is essentially piss people off. And now you've got this plan, to try to reel people back in by saying, hey, we're going to re-release Endgame on our new super format screens, our new Disney
the Infinity screens, or something
the
like
Infinity
that.
screens, and then you're going to be able to see these additional scenes, how we've changed the ending to impact what you're going to see in Doomsday. Really and truly, for those of us who spent all that time in theaters watching everything in between, there is that feeling, there's that slap in the face of like, so wait a minute, dude, why did you do that? The payoff had better be good for film goers. Otherwise, this stunt of a film, which Doomsday is looking more and more like, it's a stunt. It's a big casting film, and you're throwing everything and the kitchen sink into it for a story that on the surface doesn't really make sense. This is a story that literally doesn't make sense because it's not connected to anything that we've seen, that we know of, because this Doctor Doom is coming from the Fantastic Four universe, which we were just introduced to. The Fantastic Four universe did not exist in those other films in between. And so this is a Doctor Doom that, why are you coming to the 616? You haven't even explained why the 616 would even attract a Doctor Doom. So these type of things are things that have everyone saying, well, I'm gonna watch it. But that's not what these films used to be. These films didn't used to be, well, I'm gonna watch it. These films were appointment. They were like, you were going to see these films 2 or 3 times at the most. And right now, it's just a film that's like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to watch it, but that shouldn't be the hype. That shouldn't be the level of excitement going into an Avengers event film. And event films were also films that are in caps. There are films that all the films within a cycle led up to. None of the films in the previous cycle led up to this.
Well, so here's I think the calculation, and here's what I think the payoff is. First of all, geeks didn't make Doomsday $1.5 billion. So it turned into a cultural phenomenon. The calculation to me is that the return of RDJ is the buildup. And we know you love RDJ. We're paying him $400 million because we hope you guys love him enough to come see his ass in these next 2 movies. And so instead, the calculation to me is, instead of making you wait 7 years, we're giving you Infinity and Endgame back to back right now. And that's going to kick us off. So we know you didn't like Thunderbolts. We know you didn't like Ant-Man Quantumania. You like Loki. So we're giving you some Loki. And, Fantastic Four underperformed. And for the fans, Dr. Doom has been seen on screen with the Fantastic Four 3 previous times. He has been involved in each of the Fantastic Four past adaptations. All of them, I mean, certainly the second Tim Story Fantastic Four was a bit of a disappointment. And then the Trank, Josh, whatever, that was just ass.
Don't count.
The point is that the audiences know who Dr. Doom is, to the extent that they know he's a metal guy in a suit, or he's in a metal suit. They also know he's a big villain. Now, he's never been shown on the scale of what the rest of the comic book audience knows him to be as far as a planetary level threat, because he's only been confined to the Fantastic Four universe. Now he's being brought into the broader universe, and he's being introduced in a way that we think is going to establish him point blank as a big bad, as a major threat, Thanos level threat. And nobody was down with Kang like that. Kang was a deep cut as far as comic books were concerned.
Very deep cut.
And now you've got a guy who is, he's big. He's a big threat. He's Lex Luthor level in terms of the in terms of the Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. And guess what? We brought back your favorite MCU actor to play this guy. How did he become this guy? Well, you'll just have to come to see. And so, in as much as I know I'm going to go see it, and I know because you've called one of the movies Secret War, I have a very strong idea of what's coming.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And so Doomsday is to introduce us, and Secret War is to close off the multiverse forever. We're going to have a reset. Every piece of property that can be dragged in, perhaps minus Hulk, is going to be dragged in. They won't have the full ownership of the Hulk, but everybody else, they're going to own. And so that's what we're waiting for. Because quite frankly, Secret Wars without the Molecule Man, Secret Wars without the Beyonder, and there was a second Secret Wars, I know. But
that doesn't count.
But
it doesn't count to me.
But it's one thing.
But also they're basing this off of the OG Secret Wars, not the new Secret Wars.
Right. But there's something that's really important here, and I'm surprised no one said it. These movies don't have to only perform as well as Endgame and Infinity War. They have to be bigger in scope than Infinity War and Endgame, or it's an automatic disappointment. Yeah. You can't, you can't take a step back from Endgame in the next Avengers level movie and not meet it at that point. So that's part of the reason why they've rolled out all the cast, and everyone knows that everybody and their mama and their kids are going to be in the movie. But as far as what they put on screen, it's going to have to be bigger, badder, and better than Endgame. Because
it's going to have to be.
And because when they open that first portal and you hear Sam's voice and T'Challa walks through and everything, audiences are going to need that moment. And Steve Rogers wielding Mjolnir, they're going to have to top that. And so the expectations are through the roof in a way that they weren't through the roof going into Infinity War. because we weren't ready for the end of Infinity War, where basically they lost. They lost twice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very true. Very true.
Yeah.
It's a lot riding on it. And we shall see. Right now we are off to box office wise, we're off to a relatively midsummer, even with the massive success of Michael Jackson, and the success of Michael is massive. But with Devil Wears Prada, right now we're having yet another film that is, as it stands, not going to hit $1 billion. This weekend coming up, we've got Mortal Kombat. We are not looking like, starting off the summer, we're not looking that strong in the box office. And
Tawala, I
surprisingly,
disagree.
What? With what?
I do.
Because when I tell you this weekend, I did see Michael Jackson again, and it was like I couldn't get a seat until 9:00 on Saturday.
That's great.
This is still, and then between Devil Wears Prada and I got a big beef that I didn't get my popcorn bucket. I had to order it.
Look, I'm just going off of the reports. I'm not going off of what I think. I'm telling you from the reports.
They made $233 million this weekend, Devil Wears Prada. And I'm gonna look up, see what did Michael Jackson make? Because it had to be right up there. Michael Jackson
is it's at about 350.
Well, worldwide, Michael's at like 427.
Okay, 427.
Yeah. It's stunning. I can't get seats. Like, you're sitting front row. I feel bad for all the other.
Yeah, I got to disagree with Twala, only because, and I was talking about some of this with Tom earlier today after I came out of Devil Wears Prada. You have to know that Michael is overperforming. Okay, no one thought that movie was going to hit maybe $750 million when it's done. The word of mouth was horrible for that movie.
Yeah.
So it is definitely overperforming all expectations, and it's going to keep the repeat viewings. So I think the box office in a general sense in a better position.
The repeat viewings, yes, but Michael loses it loses its big theaters. It loses IMAX and Dolby this weekend. Both of those are going
if it only got this much money as for its total run, I believe that they would have been happy with that and they wouldn't have lost money. So I'm just saying.
They haven't lost money. It cost them $200 right now. They've made their money back, plus some. I'm saying, and I'm not talking about the performance of Michael. I'm saying the projections for this summer box office are not surpassing last year's box office, and that's what doesn't look good for theaters. I'm just talking about theaters, like where we're at and where
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm just saying that when you have movies like Michael, which are overperforming, that I think that's more positive than negative. The real question is whether the expected blockbusters, to your point, pull their weight, because there's not necessarily skepticism, but there's enough concern just in our conversation here about whether Doomsday will meet expectations, revenue, and also fan appreciation. So yeah, there are a lot of unknowns, but if you're movie theaters and you have a movie like Devil Wears Prada 2, which is performing financially about where they thought it was going to be, and you have Michael, which is overperforming. You had the Mario movie at the beginning of the year.
Mario is still number 3.
It's going to hit $2 billion most likely when it's done. So I think the totality of the year is not as bad off as I think that people thought it was going to be at this point.
I agree. And what I really think, what I feel really sad about is all these other movies, because they have
Liz,
no
did you
chance.
Go put on sunglasses?
I did, because of the Devil Wears Prada sunglasses. I went on the first night thinking I went to the first showing in the IMAX screening thinking Dolby, thinking I was going to get, they only gave these out the first night for Dolby. Nice. I was going to get a popcorn bucket, and these did not give me my popcorn bucket. Look, I don't care. Animal Farm came out this weekend. Who cares? Like, I mean, this is where it's getting to.
The Animal
Next week
Farm,
we have
yeah.
another new movie that's coming out. It's gonna be Michael and Devil Wears Prada. Like, I mean, good
Yeah,
luck.
because Mortal Kombat, even though they've got the IMAX and Dolby, people are not going to rush out to see Mortal Kombat. It's kind of like it's a lark. It's like, oh yeah, they're doing it. It's going to be funny. And it's
If
going to
I
be
would
gory.
We're not
but-
even past Memorial Day weekend, so the
Yeah.
movies that have to carry the weight of the summer haven't even started coming out yet. So
postpone.
all this is house money.
They are hoping that Mando and Grogu
Ugh.
will overperform in the way they're hoping. I'm not
thus
saying it
far,
will.
No,
I'm
thus
saying-
far,
I'm saying they're-
pre-sales on tickets are indicating that it's not. The pre-sales on tickets alone are far below expectations of Disney. The pre-sales.
Now,
Maybe
and that's
people are going to
why-
go in on word of mouth, but pre-sales.
But
Last night,
that's why they are putting that. They're putting Happy Hogan in front of all of these Disney movies,
they sure are.
so that you really got to see it on a big screen and that Dolby sound.
They
When you
sure are.
listen to it in Dolby, this is what going to a movie theater is about.
They sure
and you know
did.
what?
I
And
don't
and
care.
I watched that and I listened to the pew 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 and I said it's free for me. So you know what? I might actually go now because I appreciate a big spectacle, and I'm the voice on the show all the time who says there are movies that are made that you gotta see on a big screen, and there are movies that you need not see on a big screen. And I'm gonna let Mo say what he said to me about Prada 2 because it provides counterpoint to Mandalorian and Grogu. I am not a Star Wars fan that way, but I appreciate that is a movie that is designed to be experienced on a screen that is much larger than what I have in my home.
Sure. Anyway, but Mo and Tom said something before the last few weeks. The problem that these other theaters, these other sad little movies like Star Wars is going to experience, because I project that there's going to be a resurgence of Devil Wears Prada and Michael Memorial Day weekend. And I'm going to tell you why, because it's an experience. Like you guys, Tom and Mo have been saying, it is an experience. I went to Michael at midnight last night and people were dancing through, standing in front of the screen, dancing at the credits. And I was sitting front row because all the seats were sold. And I only went that time because all the other seats were sold out. And I didn't just do one theater. I looked at 6 different AMCs and they were all sold out. And the earliest I can get was like 11.
The word of mouth is now through the roof. It is
Well,
really
that's
picking
the
up on
thing.
that movie.
But let's talk about Prada though, because the word of mouth is not through the roof on Prada.
It's
And
not, but it's still.
Unlike Michael, which is very rewatchable, if only to relive the musical recreations. At this point, I don't even care about the rest of the story. I've seen it twice. But I would go if my older son, who did not see it, or my daughter, who's on the road right now, and I don't think she's had a chance to see it, if she wanted to see that movie, I would go and watch it again with either of my children, because to sit there and experience that movie with my kids would be something. I do not need to see Prada 2. And since we haven't been talking about it, let's fricking talk about it, because to
Let's
me,
do it.
I and this is what I will say. This movie was not Devil Wears Prada. This movie was Devil is a Tech Bro. And you didn't get the whole premise of Devil Wears Prada is that Miranda Priestley is a bad person. She's a horrible person, and Andy is a little puppy, and Miranda kicks the puppy, and she needs a job, and Miranda kicks the puppy, and the puppy ends up crawling back to Miranda until the puppy becomes a pit bull, and then the pit bull decides to walk away from its mistress. And it's a redemption story. It's a girl growing up story. It's a Cinderella story. It's all of these fantastical things which make it a very enjoyable film. A film I will watch if I'm scrolling. And I said this in my review on my page. However,
The second one doesn't do that.
the second one does not do that. They spent so much time servicing the fans and giving you moments from the, oh, that was in the first film. Oh, that was in the 1st film. It's been 20 years.
Mm.
The fuck do you mean that was in the first film? Why is Andy getting giddy about the sample closet again? Why is she holding her hands up
because
in front of her
she's
face
still
like,
broke.
it's so pretty? What the hell are we doing? And, you know, you don't have, instead of having an assistant, and again, because Mo is going to weigh in on this, Miranda has not changed enough in 20 years. But nothing you can tell me is that the woman who disparaged that cerulean sweater that was fished out of a clearance bin at a dress barn would have a morbidly obese assistant sitting in front of her office.
Guy.
I don't buy
Okay,
it. I don't buy it
wait,
for a second.
Can
Nope.
I say, okay,
A
so
skinny twink? Yes. Not that guy.
when I saw it, I was sitting next to another fellow female Black woman, and we had a fun little kiki at some of these moments, because I do think, and now that I hear your criticism, there's a lot to criticize, but I do hear the criticism about the sample closet. But I'm gonna tell you that all the women in the room and the woman that I sat next to, who was a stranger, we both had a key on the sample closet. I think we will forever be giddy about a sample closet. So that part's not, to me, is the critique. I thought that the benefit, the upside that I thought was relatable is how it starts in regards to they losing their job. And they lost their job via text message. I was like, well, this is terrible. And this is probably something that could happen. And this is the news business, and this is the print, it's unfortunate and all of that. So I thought that was a little bit more relatable, but the fashion to me wasn't as fashiony. So I thought that was a downside.
You don't think that opening scene screws up the climax of the movie?
Well, I mean, it was predictable.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the climax of the movie makes no sense given the opening premise in the first 30 seconds of the movie.
But I'm going to say
journalism is dead, print is dead, and what happens, I'm not going to spoil what happens, because if you decide you want to spend money to go see this movie, God bless you. But what I will say is that given what we see in the first 45 seconds of the film, the resolution in the last 45 seconds of the film makes no sense.
We can say this in a general sense. It is set up that Devil Wears Prada 2 updates the industry. It updates all of the characters, how, even talked about Me Too and cancel culture. That was in the previews, everything. That wasn't a secret that we're divulging. But to Tom's point, things don't make sense. And for me, they always have to make sense as far as character motivations. If you set the parameters of the story, you have to stay within those parameters. I didn't mean to cut you off, Liz. Were you done with your review?
No, I don't really have much of a review, but I will say it's a meh movie. I'd actually still go see it again, because it's an event. It's not really to make sense. But could I say, though, this is where it's relatable to me a little bit, just a tad bit. When I went to journalism school, they were like, there's this thing called a digital camera. Like, make and we were on the cuff. We were making websites. We had to make a website. And that was a nuanced thing. A lot of journalism schools were not including that a part of the curriculum. And I mean, we're making on stuff. We had to learn how to code. You don't even have to do that anymore to make a website. So for me, if I were to get back into journalism, I actually am low-key, my footing would be lost, because you had to do all this stuff by hand. You cared about the story in a way. And I think that's where this Andy person, she's losing her footing. She came out as a person who didn't think fashion was a big deal. She still doesn't think fashion is a big deal. And and so that's part of the first arc. She still is having the same but I think that that's part of the nuance that I think is frustrating as a viewer, but I can also understand it as a viewer in saying, yo, I'm lost too, because nobody cares, everything's a click, and then everybody calls themselves a journalist, and they've never, you know they know nothing about journalism. They know nothing about ethics. They know nothing about anything. But, click, 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 they're a journalist. And so I can understand that, but I can also understand that a lot of it also doesn't make much sense. But I'm there to look at the fashion.
See, I was not there to look at the fashion. I appreciated how they got the principal characters back together. If you're going to do a movie like this, get the gang back together. They did that. More Stanley Tucci in general. I don't care. I don't think he can do anything wrong. I had a pre-review on my social media talking about the first one, and I thought Andy was kind of a villain. She was not easy to support with her actions and decisions in the first movie, and rewatching it 20 years later, it reinforced that. And so I wanted to, in this next movie, which we know there was going to be about updated technology, updated culture and society, that these characters had grown in some way. I've worked in entertainment long enough to know that Miranda would not be around anymore. There's too many lawsuits that would have had to have happened when you have a movie talking about society moving forward in a much more litigious way. Miranda would not exist. Andy, when she runs into Miranda, all of a sudden she's back to that 25-year-old assistant who's scared and cowers, and she's then all of a sudden, semi-spoiler, turned into an assistant all over again for a plot point which is almost identical in the first movie. And the black friend, the stereotypical black friend, still don't even know the damn character's name. She's back in this one and has a larger role but smaller importance. I don't think they utilize the characters well, and Nigel is still Nigel doing the same fucking job that he was 30 years ago.
So the only thing I will say about the Miranda thing is that Anna Wintour is still the editor of Vogue.
Right, and you think that she's a bitch, right? She comes off as a bitch.
Anna Wintour, supposedly, that she was part of a composite of other people she knew. But everybody knows that Miranda Priestley is Anna Wintour. And Anna Wintour is still there. So I think it's possible in a magazine like Vogue that a person who has inspired as much terror, not only in assistants, but also in the industry as a whole, where Vogue is still what Vogue is, and Vogue is still the premier women's fashion magazine. It is still the Bible. And so for Vogue, and you've got Vogue Uomo for the men, and you've got all these different Vogues in all these different places, Vogue is still that one fashion magazine that has stood the test of time and is still there. So I don't dismiss the fact that Miranda could still be in control, and they did very, very slightly deal with her changing attitudes because her new assistant, who's amazingly hot, Amari, is shushing her. And she's responding to the shushing. And then they have a whole thing where she's trying to hang up her own coat, which I don't believe that Miranda would struggle in glass windows offices, struggling with her coat. I think she'd have a way of her coat being handled in a way that didn't cause her to look like an idiot. But they do say I heard she used to throw her coats and bags on the assistant's desk, and that had to stop because there was a suit. So they did try to pretend like they were living in the real world. But my bigger problem was that in the first movie, you had one villain and you had one Cinderella. In this movie, you've got 5 villains, kind of including Andy at one point.
And not even one Cinderella.
Right. You have the one baby Cinderella, but you don't even care about her because she's only in 2 scenes, technically 3, which is her assistant. Yeah, the assistant, Chen.
Oh no, but what about the guy assistant that
you know nothing about except that he switches chairs?
Right.
You know he's obese. That's all you know.
He goes to the other side.
Okay, but do you care? You cared when Andy moved up because she made a big deal
I
about
know.
saying, and Andrea, and it's like, oh, she called her Andrea. Oh shit. That was an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
We don't even see her ever interact with the fat boy. I don't even know his name. Oh, Chris in the chair. That's what he
Yeah,
is.
he's just
Chris in the chair. That's his name. And so
man.
this is a movie where, yes, New York can be a shitty place, but if you were going to make a movie about how people can still be shitty, then make that movie. Turn the original premise on its head and do something different. But don't try to say, I'm going to cookie cutter as much as I can by giving you the closet, by giving you a montage with the song Vogue.
Yeah.
Vogue was 15 years old when the first movie came out.
But I
Wait,
think that
and
that's
wait,
what the fans
15
wanted.
years later, and you still are using Vogue, and you have a new song that you wrote for this movie with Doechii and Gaga, and you do feature that song in the movie, but why
Yeah.
not put that song instead of Vogue, instead of bringing Vogue back? Oh, because we want a montage scene where they're in 6 different outfits for no reason I can understand.
Because
And so
the crowd,
no, I
me,
get it.
want that.
I get it. I get it. But at the same time, you are not going to re-see that movie. And if
No.
that movie came on Prime tomorrow, you would not sit down and watch it because the first movie does it better.
Okay, can
You
I say
can't do a
though?
worse job with the second movie and expect it to become a classic. This will never be a classic.
It won't be a
It came
classic.
out too late,
It's a trivia question.
and you threw away you threw away a lot of goodwill in trying to basically make the same movie when you shouldn't have been making the same movie. You can do some things that are callbacks. Andy had a better boyfriend, a more patient boyfriend. Kenneth
Yeah.
Branagh is a better husband. But
Yeah.
why is Kenneth Branagh in this freaking film? To
I
be
know,
in
right?
2 scenes?
I
3.
was really
Who isn't?
surprised at Kenneth Branagh being in
And
this
then
movie.
Lucy Liu.
Yeah, that's
You turn
Woefully
Lucy Liu into a
underutilized.
MacGuffin, and then you MacGuffin her to death. And then you get Louis Theroux. Why? Why are you in here, JB Novak? And well, I mean, I know why. Because you had to have a second act turn. I understand. Because, you know, there's a big thing that happens,
There-
and all of a sudden Novak is important, and in a way that he wasn't before. And so that drives the action of the last third of the film. I
there are a
understand
lot of
those.
cameos.
It's just not good.
But they
It's
weren't.
not
They're
good.
not
The best
cohesive.
cameo is Lady Gaga. That was a good cameo.
Sierra was in cam. Yeah, Sierra.
Sierra
Yeah.
was Sierra here, and then I didn't even see Sierra's ass, and she
Oh, I
fine as
did.
hell. And it was just like there was so much going on. It was like Sierra, and then there was
Yeah, it was
somebody
almost
else.
like the Hugh Jackman joke. It's like, you know, whatever.
It was, you know, but
For Hugh
okay.
Jackman to not be on screen.
I'm gonna say though, the interaction between why she turned into this 25-year-old, like kind of revert back. I kind of low key, that's a little relatable to me too. Only because I think that's kind of how some women do tend to revert back to that type of relationship when it's someone that has been this larger than life person in their professional career. There are some people in my professional career that I haven't gone to the heights that they have, and I get into their presence and we are on equal footing. But because of what they've done, I still revert back to, let me carry your stuff. Let me,
Ooh, this
that
is
kind of,
interesting because I think that put, and I said this to Tom, I think that depicted not female empowerment, the larger message of the movie, but it made her look weak and emotional and unworthy of the original job. She was still trying to prove to her mother figure, her maternal figure, that she was good enough. I mean, they even said it, you know, Stanley Tucci's character, Nigel, said it. You're looking for validation. It's like, grow the fuck up. It's been 20 years.
I think that she would act that way in a different setting. But I do think that there are some women in our career that we would revert back to that same spot if they had an influence in our life, in our professional life.
there's a difference to me in deference to a mentor or an iconic figure, and absolutely forgetting everything that made you an award-winning journalist, a real award-winning journalist who traveled the globe doing real stories for 20 years. It doesn't help that Anne Hathaway has aged very well. So Anne Hathaway, if you blink, you it would be hard to believe that Andy was 20 years older. She does not look like a 40-something-year-old woman. She doesn't. She looks good. And so that kind of helps sell the illusion. But I'm thinking of Andy being in South Africa when Nelson Mandela was freed, or covering some hard-hitting story in Palestine or Lebanon, and then coming back to Runway knowing that Miranda fucked up, knowing that Miranda is injured. And when Miranda says, "Who are you again?" And they're like, "Bitch, I'm about to save your job."
Right.
That's who I am.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Miranda, I'm not
I think she
25
can
anymore, girl. What the fuck do you mean? I saved your bacon twice, bitch. Stop it. And we can do this.
I think what Liz is pointing out, though, is a vast difference within men and women in the workplace. And I do understand where you're coming from, Liz, and how within the workplace and how women connect with their mentors and people that they work with versus how men do. And especially, and I know Mo knows this, absolutely, those who have shat on us in the past, we look you square in your face like, I wish you fucking would right now, because there isn't a place in this world where the individual who used to call me out my name would see me right now and say that shit. Come. If he would have walked in to say KFI and said something like that, I would have slapped you in your fucking mouth. And anyone, I don't care who, anyone who I've ever worked with, I've already put in my indifference, and I've already put in my servitude. I've already done that, and now I will treat you, anyone that we're with respect. But there isn't a mentor on planet Earth that that would put me back in intern mode. It's just, and I think that is something that I think is a mindset of how men have been afforded the opportunity to do so in the workplace. And even still, you have women who in the exact same fields, with even in where we were within news talk media, how women still had to fight so hard to just get some type of role, while those roles were readily available for men. So I think there is a lot to that, where even in the workplace, there's a lot that goes into how women operate versus how men operate.
Okay, I got to interject here because the movie starts, and I forgot to bring this up earlier. It's the New York Press Club, obviously the New York equivalent of the LA Press Club. Tuala, you've been to that exact award ceremony.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Andy's character won the equivalent of the grand prize, best journalist, radio journalist of the year for the New York Press Club.
Starts.
Wow.
Right. So she's
and two other people from her paper also got awards.
Right. And they got fired.
Her whole department. Okay. She's at the upper echelon of her career, and they established it in a way, I guess it was probably more obvious to me than maybe the just the audience. It wasn't just some award. She's top journalist in the #1 media market. So to go from there to falling apart the first 2 minutes that you lay eyes on this person, that to me, I thought it was self-defeating. You built her up that she's this success. Remember, she threw her phone in the pond and basically said, "Fuck you, Miranda. I'm going on with my life." And she went on and did her thing. It was just circumstance that she lost her job, but she shouldn't have lost all of her internal stature. It's hard for me to swallow because she didn't have that inferiority complex by the time that she left. So for me, it felt like she was going back to where she was even before she left that job. It did make sense.
And so here's the question I would say. I don't know if Barbara Walters ever mentored Kristen Welker. But Barbara Walters, in many ways, was the pinnacle of female journalist. Or you could go to Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes, or you could go to Jane Pauley, maybe. Or, I mean, there are a couple, but Barbara Walters.
With Jane Pauley.
I mean, I'm not dating myself with these other ones, but the point is that let's just say Barbara Walters was the Walter Cronkite of women journalists. I can't imagine Kristen Welker going up to Barbara Walters and saying, you know, you were I always looked up to you when I was a girl, da-da-da-da-da. And Barbara Walters says, I don't know who you are. And Kristen Welker being like, oh, no. And be like, I mean, I am the top rated journalist on CNN. I'm sorry you haven't seen the show, but you know, there it is. I just don't buy that a 45-year-old woman who has had to huff and burn and work in New York. If it was Des Moines, yeah. In New York,
yeah,
I don't buy that shit.
Yeah.
To Mo's point, she threw her phone away, and then we saw that Miranda actually wrote a letter of recommendation for her. That's how she got her first job after she left Miranda. And so there was a level of respect between the two. And then she comes back, and yeah, she's a little bit chafed because she fucked up. And here's another thing that I said to Mo. Does anybody believe in the darkest recesses of their fantasy that Anna Wintour would publish an article about Shein in Vogue? Anybody believe that?
Wait, Shein, the knockoff clothing app?
Yes. The scandal of the movie
you gotta break it down, right?
They featured an article about Fast Fashion, which is a fast fashion house in a country, and they bought the press release from the company and put out a story, and then it turns out that they're using child labor, blah 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 blah. Vogue,
yeah, but I think she invested in that. Didn't she invest in that? Isn't that one of her investments?
Who?
In
the movie?
Yeah, my bad. I thought Miranda had no investment.
No, she featured them in an article and praised them, and it turns out that they were bad. So this is my point. Anna Wintour is not going to push an article about Shein.
She wouldn't push an article about Temu or anything else.
Right, or Alibaba. Right. It's not happening.
Discount fashion.
It was preposterous. And by the way, the one thing that I was waiting for or hoping for or missing, pick your verb. There was not a speech in this movie like Miranda's cerulean speech.
Yeah, that's true.
Miranda cerulean speech where she dog walked Andy about that sweater and the shoes, and then she looks down and she says, "And Emily." That's all. Not a moment like that.
That's true.
That scene set Miranda up as the devil. It was early, and she was right. And then Stanley Tucci had to sweep up behind her to soften the blow and say, "Take a look at yourself, six."
but Tom, 20 years later, it's the same damn thing. And Nigel's in the same spot of life.
Better.
Well,
we had two movies. Liz, we've had two movies. We don't know shit about Nigel. We don't know about his boyfriend, his girlfriend. He has kids.
Well, you know he doesn't have a girlfriend.
No, but my point is, in fashion, that would have been explicit. And I did say I expected to see more gay people, not as a DEI thing, but I'm saying if you know anything about fashion,
right.
Blur.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I could argue that, you know, Miranda, first of all, is so self-centered that I wouldn't expect to see much of anything about anybody unless you were going to show Stanley's character through his relationship with Andy. Then maybe you can get it. But it also leads us into, there are some people, is his name Law Roach, who's like, look, I live for fashion. I'm not going to have a relationship. Like, this is my life. This is my thing. And so maybe, you know, we can go down that road.
Yeah.
Okay. But
I mean, I'm just saying, he lives for her.
For sure.
That's his meal ticket, and so he's riding it. And he did have a show. He was on that legendary show, and but Law Roach has a cameo. That was one
He
of the
does.
noticeable new cameos of this.
I
show.
do think, for all the negatives, I still disagree with you guys about her reaction with Miranda. I think from my own experience, I will beef up and bulk up with people that I may have admired, but I didn't have a close relationship with. But people who I've had a close relationship, only one or two people I've had a really close relationship, was influential in my career. They can cut me with a knife and I will revert right back to how I was as their research assistant. But
shit, not me.
But I will also say that the one thing too, you guys haven't mentioned that I think is more realistic is the Emily character and how she was able. I'm also low-key somewhat disappointed in her, but I'm not surprised that she becomes this try to be the villain to circumvent Miranda.
Tom, go ahead and knock that down. The whole how
I do think she would.
But she had won at that point. I mean, she was already successful. And
Right.
for her to go through all these machinations and strategery to get back at Miranda 20 years later.
Success?
I'm sorry?
What would be your definition of success for her?
Well, she was insecure, but I'm saying she was near the top of, I guess, a buyer for Dior. I can't remember
exactly.
That's
not success for her. She wants.
She was
people
in charge
want to
of,
be.
She was in charge of Dior's retail installations. And
for
her
me,
big project
that
was
would work. For me, I would love that, right? But for her, I would imagine that the top is to be where Miranda is.
Yeah,
but Miranda addresses the point and says, "You ain't that girl. You weren't that girl 20 years ago when you let sickness let Andy knock you off your perch. You weren't and aren't that girl." And it was proven that she's not, because without Dior backing her, she has to concede, you pushed me to Dior and Dior hired me because of you. So I don't disagree that might not have been enough for her, because she knew why. And she ended up getting fired by Dior once she tried to steal.
Sure did.
Okay, so now we're into the spoilers.
Yeah.
Emily is one of the villains. You don't know it, but Emily is one of the villains. And so, I don't disagree that Emily might have held a grudge. I just think you don't wait 20 years for Miranda to slip up about a fast fashion article to put your shit in motion.
No, Tom, don't forget, since we're doing spoilers.
Don't forget women.
No, but
we can hold a grudge for 20.
No, but she
years.
had Miranda by the neck in the opening scene.
Right.
She didn't have to buy the fucking company. Spoiler. She could have ended Miranda's career in that moment.
She could have pulled Dior. She could have pulled Dior, and they say Dior is responsible for 12% of our pages, and we're already.
But she wanted to make Miranda look small.
But I'm saying she didn't take the first shot when she had it. She had Miranda in her sights, and they create this backstory subterfuge reveal at the end, and it's almost like you had them with a knife to their throat, and you said, "Nah, let me sleep on it," and then you have to come back a week later with a gun. You're right there. It didn't make sense.
And if Dior had pulled, it would have destroyed Runway. It would have made it easier for her to be replaced if she had yanked the pages. But here's the thing.
And her job promotion.
Well, that did cost her that.
But I'm saying all of that was in play.
Because Irv died.
Yeah.
Well, I will say from all of this, and I have not seen a lot of good word of mouth on this film. I think that this was this film's weekend. I do not think that this film, just based on word of mouth, is going to have a strong, lasting. I think that there is going to be a significant drop off. We shall see. I think that the drop off is going to be significant. And Liz was absolutely on point in talking about how many people were mad that they weren't able to get those damn popcorn buckets. Like, yo, Threads was hot. They was like, walked up into that theater, didn't have my popcorn bucket, did get to take a picture at the theater activation, but outside of that, F that theater, and I ain't going back. I was just like, people were mad.
For you super fans, them bags are on Temu.
The official
and them
ones, right?
Temu people actually made them bitches.
That's not the
Go
point.
get you one. It's going to be cheaper. It'll take a couple of weeks to get to you probably, but it's going to be cheaper than the $29 you would have paid. And you can get you some Jiffy Pop or some Orville Redenbachers and pop that in your microwave.
You can actually get AMC popcorn and put it in.
It costs you $16 plus $2.99 shipping.
Tom, when I tell you people were hot.
I
was mad.
Yeah,
when all they had was a damn blanket.
Look, I will tell you my Devil Wears Prada story. This weekend, Friday was my daughter's birthday, and she wanted to go to the Grove with her friends to go and see a movie. She went to go see The Drama. None of her friends wanted to see Michael or Devil Wears Prada. They wanted to go and see The Drama, the new Zendaya film, because they're all Zendaya films fans. So they went to go see that. And because I was there and there's nothing else for me to do in the area, I didn't feel like going to the movies. I went and got something to eat and sat in my car and ate and chilled and looked at videos on my phone. But when I went to go pick them up, I really had to use the restroom and I couldn't find a public restroom at the Grove. So I said, you know what? Let me see what's playing real quick so I can use my AMC pass to walk up in there, use the bathroom, validate my parking. And the only thing that was showing there was a 10:30 showing of Devil Wears Prada that was in time for me to catch a ticket to. So I went and got the free ticket for Devil Wears Prada. And that's how I knew people were upset about those damn popcorn buckets, because there was a guy literally I was standing kind of like near the front. I was waiting, as I finished coming out, used the restroom, got the validation, stand out, and I'm standing and I kind of just have my arms behind my back and just standing by the exit. And a guy comes up to me, he's like, sir, do you work here? And I'm like, no, I do not. And so I'm sorry, you just look very official. And then he went over and found someone else that was near me. They said, sir, do you work here? The guy was like, yes. He said, I want to let you know, I came here expecting to get the Devil Wears Prada popcorn bucket, and I got here and it said that you guys had some, and it's total. And he was hot. He wanted a voucher. He wanted them to go and look in the back. He was like, I'm not leaving here without it. And he was hot. Him and the person that was with them, both of them dressed like they were trying to dress up for Devil Wears Prada. But these two dudes were super fierce and they wanted the damn popcorn bucket. They were not having it. They weren't. I was like, and it made me laugh because I didn't know you didn't get one at the time, Liz. But I was standing there and I'm laughing. I'm like, yo, Liz is going to be cracking up at this because these dudes was hot. They were like, no. I went up there and it says you guys have them. And to be told that they're not in the back, I don't believe that. Like,
I went to the first showing. How is this possible? I went on the first showing one Thursday and there was no popcorn bucket, and I drove to 2 other AMCs and was like, what are you talking about? You sold out. Why do you have a flyer saying sold out? And it's the first
think it's
showing.
Because people are buying them online now. I really do think that folks are getting slick and they're going on the AMC website and they're buying them directly without even having to go to because they know they could put them on eBay and sell them for goo gobs. Damn Fantastic Car is still over $100 unwrapped.
It's unfortunate. This is what's really angering me. I talked to somebody at the AMC and they had 12 buckets per AMC, and people were lined up before the movie theater even opened at different movie theaters and was buying, and they were allowed to come in and buy a bucket without a ticket. You need to at least buy a bucket. You need to at least have a ticket in order to buy a bucket. This is terrible.
Popcorn buckets is big business now. Popcorn buckets is big business.
Anyway,
those things are getting more and more fancy. And now I may have to go on Temu just so I can get a few so I can put them on eBay. and get that resale because it's a thing, y'all. It's a thing. But at an hour and 20, we were gonna have to go on and wrap this and catch up next week with some more fantasticness. We got Mortal Kombat next week. You know, the crew may go see Michael again. I don't know. I may finally go see Michael. We got the finale of Daredevil. We've got, I believe, the finale of Maul coming up. So we got
That's
some
really
good
good.
shit that'll be on the table for next week. Absolutely. And so until then, Dr. Liz, with your cool shades, take us out.
Good night, everyone.
Mo Kelly.
Multipass.
Tom is talking Cunningham.
Where is my Nigel suit?
With the popcorn bucket
Well done.
missing.
Excelsior.